Hello, thanks for joining me, astrologer Patrick Arundell, for your Pisces new moon deep dive video. This event occurs on the 13th of March 2021 at 10:21 AM Universal Central Time. Now, if you're new to my channel, I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Please tap or click on the bell notification symbol. Also, if you'd like to chat with me on a one-to-one basis in a confidential discussion through Zoom or Skype, you can see the link below and check out my testimonials. Or if you'd like to ascend above your sun sign and discover more about serious astrology, you can do so with my affordable range of charts. You can also have a special offer of the 12-month forecast and a character analysis. Again, please see the link below. Now, for the purpose of this deep dive, I'm going to explore the meaning of the new moon in the sign of Pisces, but I'm going to go much wider than that. I'm going to explore the exact moment when the event occurs and how that's going to impact on us all over the next month. And it does go beyond just the influence of the sun and the moon. If you'd like to find out how this will influence you in terms of your zodiac sign, please stay with the video. I will go through each of the 12 signs at the end of this first segment. Also, I will leave the timestamps beneath the video to assist you to find your sign. So please join me by looking at the wheel on your screen. So you can see the sun and the moon in Pisces at 23 degrees and 3 minutes. Now, pretty close to that point is Neptune and Venus, who are in a conjunction. Okay, they're 1 degree apart, but if we were looking at a natal chart, the fact that Venus is 4 degrees and Neptune is just 3 degrees away from this new moon is particularly significant, especially as Neptune is the co-ruler or the co-regent of the sign of Pisces. And basically, the sun has been very closely allied to Neptune and Venus all through this week. So we're reaching a crescendo on this Saturday, and it really can be quite a magical new moon. If you think about what we've been going through over the last year, such a challenging, brutal time for so many people in so many ways. And in fact, when the crisis began, the moon was actually conjunct Neptune on the solar return for the world, midnight at the start of 2020 in the 6th house of health. Now you can see in this chart that the collection of energy, which includes Venus and Neptune, but also Mercury, are all in the 10th house. And the 10th house is very much about authority. It's quite Capricornian. It can be to do with leadership, management. In our own personal situations, it's very much to do with our goals and ambitions. But I think that this suggests that there's going to be greater leadership about how to deal with COVID. Also, you can see that Mercury is actually very close to the midheaven. So Mercury is exalted in the sign of Aquarius and also governs the second decan. The third decan is actually where it's located now, is governed by Venus. But what we've got is Mercury conjunct the articulate, visionary sign of Aquarius in the 10th house. So I think that's going to show greater clarity coming through. And also Mercury is forging a fine trine to the ascendant of this chart, which is at 29 degrees 33 in Gemini, and that also happens to be exactly conjunct the part of fortune, which can be a real feel-good factor. And I think this is a sign that things are starting to regenerate. We are starting to see solving strategies. But also you can see that Pluto, the planet of truth and transformation, but most certainly of power, is in a lovely sextile with the sun. Again, it's about 2.5 degrees away from being exact. But I think that's very good, because the Pluto and sextile Sun sextile can be very much about inner work and inner changes, but it can also be about changes in our physical reality. And Pluto's in the 8th house, which can, let's be frank about it, it can be about death, but it can also be about reincarnation. So I feel that the funding to deal with COVID It won't be perfect anywhere in the world. And for example, we've got the COVAX scheme where the developing nations should be getting spare shots from the Western world, and it hasn't been happening as quickly as it should be. You know, these kind of injustices are all over the place. We've also got Britain, for example, cutting back on its foreign aid budget in countries that are warm to on disgusting at this precise time. So I'm talking about generalities, but it's not going to be right for everybody. But I think with Pluto and the Sun being well aligned, I think we are talking about the potential for a rejuvenation. So this collective at the top of the situation suggests that a bit more clarity is going to go on around the healing process, because Neptune being so close to this Moon and Sun combination, I think can actually be very regenerative, especially with Pluto's help. So that's something we can all really savour. But the magic also comes from the fact that Neptune and Venus together, wow, I really like that, you know, because Neptune can, of course, be trickstery, it can be deceptive, it can be very illusionary. But I think it also points towards seeing the best in situations. And I feel that there is going to be an uplift. There is the potential to tune in to the greater good in all sorts of ways. Pisces energy is complex. You know, it is the sign of reflection. It is the sign of letting go. It is the sign of coming to terms with how things have been, preparing us for when the Sun moves, as it will, on the 20th of March with the vernal equinox into the first sign of the zodiac, and we start the new zodiacal year and we get the official spring. I know that there is a meteorological spring, but it's not one that a lot of astrologers recognise, to be honest. So we're in a period of transition where we're coming to terms with the tragedy that's occurred, with the restriction of our movement, on our freedoms, of the potential to be joyous and interactive with one another, but also enormous lessons have been learnt about, you know, perhaps that was the reality for a lot of people before the COVID outbreak. Just a lot of people have found out, hey, this is what it's like. And I just feel that healing is really the theme of this new moon. So over the next month, we are going to see some really good news, I feel, in terms of the numbers of people getting infected will drop. I feel that Saturn and Mars, you can see, are in about a 4-degree trine. That's very, very good. Saturn, of course, continuing to be in a much more challenging right angle with Uranus, which goes on through the first half of this year in the last 5 weeks. That is still problematic. That probably points towards still a degree of limitation, especially with Uranus being in the 11th house, limitation on our personal freedoms. And the 9th house very much about, you know, our desire to move around and travel as we want. So there is still that limitation, but I think Mars and Saturn come together in a very much more constructive way. So all through its journey through the sign of Gemini, Mars forges much, much more uplifting aspects than it did when it was going through Taurus, and really from the 7th of January for 6 weeks, you know, it was causing some real frustration and real tensions. Now we do have a square in this chart between the North Node and Venus. I don't think that's going to be particularly challenging. The North Node's still in the 12th house in this chart, sorry. It's still in Gemini, I should say. Will be until early 22. And that's just saying that we need to communicate more with compassion, I feel. The sign Pisces is very much about compassion. We also have Chiron, to do with wounds, to do with healing, in the 11th house of humanity. But it's very close to Ceres. In fact, it's only 5 minutes away from being exactly conjunct. So that's also a lovely detail of this particular chart. So I think what I'm seeing is a sense of coming to terms with things. If we are people that enjoy healing, enjoy any kind of natural therapies, if we enjoy breathing exercises or meditations or body work or gestalt, whatever technique you're working through, I do feel that embracing those can be for the universal good of us all. And I think it's time to try to see the best in one another. We live in a world where it's ravaged by social media comment as much as it's uplifted by it. If we can find a way of finding the best in situations, how we feel about things, being a bit more cautious about just saying how we feel, understanding that there's a lot of good that can be used with words as well as a lot of harm. So the sensitivity of Neptune and Venus together can be quite delicious. So please stay with me and I'll give you your individual forecast for each sign. So Aries, we have this collective in your 12th house. And for you, you may be mourning. I can only be honest with you. You may be mourning something that didn't go as you hoped. You may be coming to terms with an end, a big end in your situation. This could be just as equally true if you have the progressed sun in Aries, or it could be true if you have the ascendant there as well, to be honest. But I think if you do find yourself wanting to retreat a little bit from other people, don't beat yourself up about it. It's fine. And you do actually have Mars in a very effective part of your particular chart, so your 3rd house, and you have Saturn in the 11th house. There are going to be people who are going to really connect with you and be there for you. But I think it is about just, rinsing through, letting go of past hurts, injustices, really looking to find peace and tranquility to engage with nature. And that's going to be a really positive thing to do. Preparing yourself for the launch that is that vernal equinox. Now, Taurus, I think friendships for you have probably been quite steady Eddie affairs for a long time. It's possible with this month ahead that people could be coming into your world, or someone could come into your world who has a bigger view of the world, who encourages you to think up in some ways, to look outwards, to embrace things that in the past you might have thought were a bit, a little bit left field, not really your scene. The more open-minded you can be about the type of people you can be friendly with, the better it's going to be. And I think it could be quite magical for you. You could have some lovely conversations. We have to trust a little bit in the process of relating. Alicia and I talk about this a lot because she comes from a kind of Liverpool background. She's a bit shrewder, a bit more streetwise than perhaps I am. But I do think it is important to give a little bit of credit and see if people squander it or appreciate it. That's just my view, and I think that could be helpful for you in the next month. Now, Gemini, for you, it's very much about your work. And if you're a healer, you're a spirit or a light guide of some kind, or you're somebody who works with people with their mental health or in a big institution, I think you can really do well over the next month. People can really recognise your care and sensitivity, and that is something that can win you plaudits. It's also possible that you're going to snaffle yourself a new job or adapt the role that you've got now to make it more creative. Now, for you, Cancer, it's very much about expanding your horizons. Some kind of big move is in the works, and it could be the move of a lifetime. If the move is not on the astral cards, it could be that you're really, really thinking about as soon as you can get away to somewhere that's quite magical. It could be a retreat. It could be a destination that has history and culture linked to it, but very much, I feel, near water. So if you can change things up in that regard, that would be lovely. You do have Mars in your 12th house, and it is forging a very positive angle to Saturn in your 10th, where you have Jupiter as well. And because Mercury is also, in terms of equal house, in your 10th house, something to do with your work might be part of this process. So work to do with travel or the travel industry or traveling for work are all possible. Or I feel that someone from your past could come back into your world, or a past experience or skill can turn out to be adapted in the here and now. Now, Leo, well, for you, you have a big clustering of energy in the sign of Aquarius and also in Pisces. But the 8th house new moon is about where you're most invested, to deep level, it can be romantically, can be spiritually, because you have Saturn in your sector of relating. If there are any weaknesses around a close relationship, they could be revealed at this time. But if something is ending, whether it's a friendship, a business association, a partnership, or it is a romantic tie, unfortunately, I think what you're being asked to do is try to be as philosophical as possible. And letting go can prove to be very cathartic for you. You're a fixed sign. Change doesn't come easily to you. And I think if you can embrace a deeper understanding of your needs, your psychological needs, and those of others, it can be a great asset to you at this time. This new moon is all about your relationships. And your relationships can, reach a point of a kind of higher frequency. You can attract really good thoughts to you, or you can bring out the best in people. Your own personal relationships, pre-existing relationships, can improve. It may mean that you need to let go a little bit of that part of you that is very precise. It's kind of good to use this to your own advantage, but if you're pointing things out to people, correcting them a lot, then that can be quite grating at times, if I'm honest. So I think what this chart's saying to you is, don't sweat the small stuff. Appreciate the good things in your situation. I think there could be a new job coming through for you, and it can be a very positive change for you. And it may mean that you're going to forge new alliances. But if you've been a bit stuck with what you've been doing for some while, this could be like a breath of fresh air. Libra. So I have been saying over the last few years that it's so important to know how to set your boundaries and to say no. A lot of Librans write to me saying that this is absolutely how it's been, because you've been given so much since Neptune moved into your 6th house in 2012. But then the complications around your 4th house in recent years have meant that your boundaries have felt sort of overrun at times. People just haven't realised how sensitive and vulnerable you've been. But if there's a part of you that still wants to help others, you've still got a huge degree of compassion, it could well come out over the next month. And also, you can, in terms of your work, use your imagination in a very, very positive, even artistic way. Scorpio, this new moon is glorious for sharing your talents and embracing the joys of life. It's just because you've got Saturn in the 4th house, it really has to be exactly workable how you want to change your life to make these more creative and artistic strands really flow through. But they can, as long as the basic foundation of your world is secure and there's a real honesty with yourself and those immediately around you. Saturn in your 4th house can be a challenge over the next couple of years, there's no doubt about it. But if you want to do something from home and be very practical about how you do it, so it could be working from home, it could be a hobby that you turn into something more, I feel that this chart is brilliant for you over the next month, so embrace it. Sagittarius, as I'm often saying, it's all about feelings with you guys, because your enthusiasm is legendary, you're upbeat, often jovial, vast knowledge on lots of different subjects. It's something to behold. But do you give yourself permission to really let your feelings breathe in and out? Imagine a lung. The lungs are very much to do with grief. Are your lungs feeling really clear? Can you breathe, let the breath down, or is all your breath at the top of your chest? Do you feel your neck muscles are taut and uptight? Well, if so, these set of influences are saying, look, it's time to be more tranquil, to find moments of peace and tranquility, to forgive yourself if you've got vulnerabilities and fears, to stop being quite so intellectually competitive and be more at ease with who you are, the deeper person you are. And it's absolutely fine. And you've still got an awesome link between Saturn and Mars, which is very constructive. So if you've got something important that you want to say, particularly around a relationship situation, you can articulate it with clarity. But I think compassion is a massive thing that we can all buy into more and more. It's very hard when people offend us. We can get angry, we show that anger, but this chart is very much about letting the more emotional part of your nature flow and come to the fore. Capricorn, big clustering of energy in the 3rd house, which is about how we think, it's about how we communicate with neighbours, with siblings, it's about our everyday environment. But your imagination can be absolutely awesome. Do you know, if you've got ideas you want to share, they can really flow over the next month. Quite lovely. And maybe someone in your everyday world has got a little bit of an attraction for you. They may not necessarily be showing it in a verbal way, so watch out for that non-verbal communication. Aquarius, now, with a 2nd house new moon, I'd very often be talking about resources or self-worth. This is a different chart because of the role of Neptune, but you've had Neptune in your 2nd house since 2012, so you kind of know what the gig is. It's sort of pushed you to be more giving around charities and, you know, to be generous of spirit, which, you know, Aquarius people are often very kind. So that may not have been much of a change for you. But this new moon could manifest for you some kind of new foundation in your life, but it may be a foundation with a difference. It may see some financial improvement, but I think it can just as easily see a new reality shaping up for you, a new reality which actually meets your needs in a way which has seemed inaccessible for some time. So money can come in, but also a greater sense of self-worth. I see you becoming more at peace with who you are. And finally, to Pisces, what a magical new moon this is for you. There's no doubt about it, with having Saturn in your 12th house, where he's going to be for the next couple of years. And, you know, Pluto's then going to go through your 12th house for a very extended period of time from 23. So the psychological part of your nature is going to be much to the fore in the weeks and months and years to come. But this particular chart is very much about you, the individual, and it brings together a lot of your strengths. So there's a lot for you to go for here. It's about daring to do what is based on your instincts. It's not necessarily based so much on practicalities. And of course, it depends on your natal horoscope. For example, you might have an Earth ascendant or moon, or you might have a lot of the 2nd and 6th and 10th houses in terms of your house positions, which makes you much more of a toe on the ground type of Pisces. But I think for all Pisces people in general, this is the time to trip the light fantastic, to just go with what your instincts are telling you and see where it leads. Because whether it's around love, romance, the way you dress, where you live, whatever it is, some kind of big moment is possible over the next month. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care, good luck, and goodbye.